you know Jack LaLanne? He's the godfather of fitness. He had the first national exercise show on television starting back in 1959. To this day, he holds the record for the longest run on the air at 34 years. He was more than a workout expert. He was a pioneer with his messages, challenging conventional beliefs about exercise, nutrition, and who should be participating. Over his career, he sold thousands of juicers, vitamins, and made a strong fashion statement. He accomplished Herculean feats of strength and endurance to garner publicity and spread the message that all of us can be much better than we are. Hollywood celebrities like Bette Davis, Jane Fonda, and Arnold Schwarzenegger have all sung his praises. There are some, though, who question the results. Though the exercise and fitness field has grown from an afterthought at the time LaLanne's show went on the air into a multi-billion-dollar-a-year industry, obesity rates have also climbed steadily. Profitable as the business has become, its historical image, tied in with wellness, is one laden with hucksters and snake oil salesmen. There are other critics, too, who say that LaLanne's messages inappropriately favored body over intellect and have had a crippling shaming effect, perhaps even adding to the obesity crisis. In the following documentary, we'll look at how he communicated, who he was targeting, and what effect he had on business, politics, and religion. Regardless of the varying opinions, there's no doubt LaLanne was a trailblazer in his use of the relatively new and very powerful medium of television. The truth is, you should know Jack. Before humans discovered farming, or any recognizable form of society as we know it today, we were a nomadic species of hunters and gatherers. People were very fit, but due to the harsh lifestyle, life expectancy was short. When humans began to settle, more permanent homes and societies were developed. The life was still extremely physical. As groups settled and boundaries and borders were drawn, culture developed. As a relatively more sedentary lifestyle became possible, yoga and kung fu emerged in India and China, respectively. Attaching fitness and the body to the spirit was born. Yoga and Kung Fu are two of the earliest forms of exercise known to historians. However, fitness really took off like most inventions do when a purpose was attached to it, in this case, war. While the Spartans developed one of the most feared military cultures known to man, Athenian doctors and philosophers pushed the mind-body relationship in terms of health. The Romans came, they saw, and when they fell hard. Excess on many levels, materialism, and lack of physical well-being are among the suspected causes. Through the Dark and Middle Ages, intellectualism and culturalism fell and physicality once again became dominant. Not until the Renaissance is there a noticeable return to the idea of the mind-body-spirit connection from multiple disciplines. Philosophers, religious leaders, and physical educators of the time all championed the idea that fitness levels enhanced intellectual learning.
A sound mind in a sound body is a short but full description of a happy state in this world. He that has these two has little more to wish for, and he that wants either of them will be little the better for anything else.
A tree must also transpire and needs to be copiously refreshed by wind, rain, and frost. Otherwise, it easily falls into bad condition and becomes barren. In the same way, the human body needs movement, excitement, and exercise, and in daily life, these must be supplied either artificially or naturally. In America's early years, fitness was deemed unnecessary as, once again, the culture found its physical activity in daily survival. Hunting, gathering, building, farming, and many other chores were very physical and demanded human activity. By the time the Founding Fathers arrived, leaders such as Benjamin Franklin, a member of the Swimming Hall of Fame, and Thomas Jefferson were avid fitness advocates.
No gains without pains. Early to bed and early to rise makes a man healthy, wealthy, and wise.
Not less than 2 hours a day should be devoted to exercise, and the weather shall be little regarded. If the body is feeble, the mind will not be strong.
Out of the Civil War comes the Industrial Revolution, which changes how we use our bodies permanently. Mechanical technologies arrive. Urban life thrives, generally requiring less physical activity than life on the farm. The cost for this technology and lifestyle? American life expectancy is increasing, But so are their illnesses, some rarely seen before: cardiovascular diseases, cancer, type 2 diabetes. Things never before prevalent are now the leading cause of death. Some Protestant groups in the late 1800s worried about the urbanization of men, causing them to become more effeminate as manual labor began to decline. Christian guilds were formed based on the manliness of Christ. Members were selected based on their Christianity first, then for an act of physical courage or prowess. President Teddy Roosevelt, born a sickly child suffering from asthma and poor eyesight, extols the values of physical activity with his speech, The Strenuous Life.
A life of slothful ease, a life of that peace which springs merely from lack of desire or of power to strive after great things, is as little worthy of a nation as of an individual. I ask only that what every self-respecting American demands from himself and from his son shall be demanded of the American nation as a whole.
New ideas about physical education were developed and implemented in the early 1900s by physicians such as Luther Gulick and R. Tate McKenzie. Among other accomplishments, Gulick is credited with mentoring James Naismith in the development of the game of basketball. McKenzie fought for the acceptance and balance of the relationship between physical and academic education. In 1914, World War I begins. Also in 1914, Jack LaLanne is born. More on him in a moment. After the war, statistics show that 1 in 3 drafted individuals was unfit for combat. Government legislation for fitness in schools is implemented. The American Federation of Labor and other conservative interest groups testify against federally backed exercise as they fear its fascist, socialist appearance. Congress pushed forward. Several congressmen were pictured exercising in Hygeia, the American Medical Association-backed magazine. Outside the schoolyard, fitness took a back seat to the good times of the Roaring '20s, though, and it stayed there during the bad times of the Great Depression. Once again, it is clear that fitness, without stark individual or collective purpose, is deemed unimportant. In the late 1920s, Jack LaLanne was a sickly teenager who suffered from debilitating headaches. He claims to have had a 105-degree temperature for 14 days. He was expected to die. He tried to kill his older brother on 2 separate occasions. According to LaLanne, the massive amounts of sugar and junk food he was eating was making his mind psychotic. His mother, who raised him a Seventh-day Adventist, took Jack to a health seminar by Paul Bragg.
They got there a little late and walked into the door, and there wasn't any seats, so Paul Bragg says, "A lady with the little boy, ushers, bring 2 seats and put them up here on the stage." And Jack was just mortified.
But as Paul began to talk, the message clicked with Jack.
I don't care what your physical condition is, you can be reborn again. And that hit him.
When Jack told Paul his diet was filled of pies, cakes, and ice cream, Paul told Jack that he was a human garbage can. That night, Jack went home and prayed for, quote, the willpower and intestinal fortitude to refrain from eating wrong, lifeless, dead foods when the urge comes over me. And, LaLanne added, God, please give me the strength to exercise when I don't feel like it. However it happened, LaLanne turned his life around. He became a star athlete in football, baseball, track, and wrestling. He earned the nickname the Raisin Kid for his obsession with eating raisins and nuts. In 1936, a now healthy Jack LaLanne strives to make a difference. He opens the first public gym on the West Coast, in Oakland, California. He recruits local high school students who appear to be struggling in the same manner he once did. But the road wasn't easy. Critics in the newspapers told people to stay away, that men would have heart attacks and women would end up hideously muscle-bound. And worse, Jack said, they said you wouldn't be able to sleep if you worked out with me. They said I'd kill you. They said you wouldn't be able to get an erection. They wrote in the newspapers that you'd get hemorrhoids if you came to my gym. That was a big one. They all brought up the damned hemorrhoids. For all the credit given to Jack LaLanne as the godfather of fitness, he was not the first to offer health and fitness messages via media. Early pioneers of fitness included Bernard McFadden, editor of Physical Culture magazine. McFadden advocated wearing fewer clothes, avoiding white bread, and performing headstands to reduce baldness. He claimed this to be effective for men and women. Charles Atlas may be the godfather of before and after. His story of going from a 97-pound weakling to buffed beefcake was the stuff of legend. McFadden himself awarded Atlas the title of the world's most handsome man. Atlas's program of dynamic tension promised to make new men out of those who followed it in just 7 days. As the ads were often in the back of comic books, boys were the obvious target. But not the only responders. Women, King George VI, and even Mahatma Gandhi all sought advice from Atlas. Clearly, he tapped into something the public wanted: confidence, self-esteem, power. There were critics, though, not just of Atlas, but of the entire emerging fitness and wellness industry and its use of print media and radio. In Ruth Brinsley's 1937 radio expose, Not to be Broadcast, the author took on the practices of those who she felt were exploiting the medium against the public's interest.
There is no question but that the radio has given the medicine man's business a tremendous boost, and that the buying public, for whom the shows are put on, has been cheated both because of the exaggerated claims for the products and their exorbitant price. The advertiser is the one who directly supplies the income, and his interests take precedence over those of the public.
Many writers, some of whom were doctors writing in magazines like Hygeia, referred to the imbecility of exercise, calling those who dared to exercise beyond their college years blockheads and vain donkeys. Some said it was silly, non-essential work that renders people too tired for mental work. And if narcissism or the threat of ridicule weren't enough to drive people away, biomedical brought in the big guns. Men over 35 who exercised are vain fools who should act their age and face the possibility of heart attacks.
I think LaLanne came along at a time when the medical community was still seeing exercise as risky, as fundamentally, dangerous, and we've got to be very cautious about this. I think that impression has changed dramatically in 50 years, and I think people like LaLanne were instrumental in helping to change that impression.
When I was in medical school back in the 50s, 1952 to 1956, we were told that people over 40 years of age shouldn't exercise vigorously. You might kill yourself exercising. Also back in those days, we were taught no exercise physiology in medical school, no nutrition in medical school. It's all disease treatment, too much care too late as far as I'm concerned.
The age of 40, for whatever reason, was deemed the cutoff by most. Dr. Peter Steincrone wrote several articles admonishing people for even considering it. If you must exercise, at least be reasonably certain that you are healthy enough to undergo its rigors. And remember that the fact that you feel well is no proof that you are well. A healthy 40-year-old heart can become a sick heart when asked to carry a 20-year-old's burden. And once again invoking the great power of death, the Grim Reaper seems to have patience for the relaxers and is impatient with the overdoers.
Jack had such a pure spirit about him that he was really trying to inspire people with the truth, and he did inspire a lot of people. I mean, he was the original, because before him, there was no fitness guru. People thought, doctors were saying, oh, you shouldn't lift weights, it's bad for you.
While some media messages were at least conciliatory toward the prospect of men exercising, at least until they were 40, the message for women was hegemonic.
Too active participation in strenuous sports will often cause irreparable harm.
Ladies performing athletically may well become lumpy and unattractive.
Because of the formation of the female pelvis and their ability to reproduce, the position of their thigh bones makes them physically unfitted to prowess in certain activities for which boys are admirably constructed.
I recall in 1970, when the book came out, 72, Aerobics for Women, and being asked the question, is it ladylike for a woman to sweat? They actually asked that question. Back when Kathy Schweitzer tried to run the Boston Marathon years ago, they pulled her out because only men can run marathons. And last year, over 500,000 people finished a marathon. Some of those finished several marathons, of course, but 52% were women. So to answer your question in a roundabout way, the attitude towards conditioning and training back in the 50s was entirely opposite what it is today.
Exiting World War II, television exploded in America. From 1945 to 1950, the number of television sets in American homes grew from less than 10,000 to 6 million. By 1960, there were 10 times more. The effects of the new medium were and continue to be the source of much debate. The use of television in presidential debates, coverage of war, and televangelism has been credited with changing the course of history. So what would the effect of exercise on television be in 1951 when Jack began sharing his messages to audiences across this relatively new medium?
I think that at a time when fitness was nowhere, where you had weird people, so perceived, doing bodybuilding, actually weird and suspect, people doing bodybuilding. Jack LaLanne made trying to be fit for a population that was almost housebound in our culture a viable option as something that can be considered.
Well, he was completely different. I mean, nobody, in those days, people, myself, you go to the movies, you see, in the movies they made everybody that had muscles and all that sort of thing. They made them look like they were not so much upstairs, I wasn't interested in his brawn. I was interested in his brain because he was so smart, and he knew what he was talking about, and he walked the talk.
Look, students, before we get started with our gymnastics, I want to ask you a question. What is the most important commodity you have in your life? What is it? Is it money? Is it your house? What is it? You know what it is? Time. That's right. Time is the most important commodity you have. Whatever you are, whatever you hope to be, it's what you have done with the time. Now, if you're going to improve yourself and you're going to make this body of yours over, when are you going to do it? Yesterday, tomorrow, Christmas, New Year's? When are you going to do it? There's only one time to start improving yourself, and there's only one time that's important in your life. And you know what it is? Right here. I'll show you what it is. This is the most important time of your life. Now, N-O-W. This can make your life or break it.
My father just was in the right place at the right time in terms of using media. And he had that brilliant gift, as you've seen from the shows, of looking right into the camera and right into the viewer's heart and living room. And it was an immediacy that media needed at the time. And women all over America thought he could see them because he'd say, "Okay, Marge, get off the couch." And across the country, Marges would go, "Oh, how did he know I was sitting down?"
Come on, Maggie, get those old heels up. That's it. 1, 2, 3, 4.
The fact that he has them using, you roll up this towel, you take this chair. Everybody has a chair, whether you're rich or poor. Everybody has a chair. Everybody has a table. Everybody has a towel. We're not talking about exotic equipment. You don't have to be wealthy to do these things. And he's treating people with, you can do this at home. I expect you to be doing this at home. I don't expect you to do this other places. You can do this privately. It's a different moment, and he's relating to them through the TV and personalizing it through the TV.
As he was on in the morning, he knew his audience was predominantly housewives and children. He used the presence of his dog, Happy, to hook the children and assist in getting his audience to the television.
Boys and girls, here's Happy. He's been waiting for you. Haven't you, Happy? And if you run and get Mother, I'm going to show you a trick that Happy has learned recently. So you go get Mother wherever she is, and you say, "Mother, Jack LaLanne is waiting. Come on, go get her." Hup. All right, now for you boys and girls, you always write in a lot of cards and letters. You say you love Happy and you want to see him do a trick. Well, we're going to see if he can play dead dog. Happy. Down. Dead dog. Dead dog. Poor little dead dog with his eyes open. Okay, Happy. Bye-bye. He's just too healthy to be dead.
He began with a local television show in San Francisco on KGO-TV, the ABC affiliate. 8 years later, he went national, moving his show to Hollywood. Though he had an outline, the show was largely made up on the spot.
He got up there and he had exercises for all parts of the body. He had a pep talk.
When people start to get around 25 or 30, they're kind of considered, well, they're getting along in years. When they get around 40, boy, that's middle age. 50, 60, oh, they're old people. And 70, oh, boy, they're in a rocking chair.
Those pep talks saved a lot of people's lives. And he had a nutrition. He would have a format, we'll open with this, with this idea. And we'll close with this idea, or we'll close with this nutrition tip. But all the exercises came right off his head.
Like many products and businesses, however, it took the stars to align for Jack's messages to be heard by the widest audience.
Betty Davis is on the line, and she said she's leaving town tonight, and she wants to meet Jack LaLanne. And so we go over to the hotel. She told us that I had a bad back, and I said, and the doctors didn't know what to do with me, and watching your TV show, and you were so inspiring and encouraging. I started doing a few little exercises. Every day I started working out, doing a little more and a little more. Like you always say, make haste slowly. and I made hay slowly, and it helped my back.
Original Hollywood gossip writer Luella Parsons asked Davis what was the secret of her renewed energy and fresh beauty. Davis said Jack's exercises helped her feel like a new person. She was one of several stars who went on to blurb his book. Though Jack rubbed elbows with some of the biggest and best of his time, he didn't get too close.
He never thought he was a celebrity. He said, "You know what a celebrity is? A guy trying to find a job."
In 1954, Dr. Hans Kraus and Ms. Bonnie Pruden published the article Muscular Fitness and Health in the Journal of American Association for Health, Physical Education, and Recreation. The findings of the article and the strong reaction from President Eisenhower were presented in the 1955 Sports Illustrated article, The Report That Shocked the President. Kraus and Pruden said Americans were becoming soft due to the effortless new lifestyle we were being afforded. With muscle tone dissipating, Americans would have to engage in a state of physical fitness comparable to that of when they used to walk for transportation, work on farms, and perform manual labor. And it wasn't just the adults. Over 50% of American students failed at least one of the compulsory physical fitness test components given to them, while only 8% of the European children did the same. Eisenhower directed VP Richard Nixon to call a meeting to decide what the government must do. Though poised to make a major fitness announcement, Eisenhower's health would have him wait.
Good news of the week comes from Fitzsimmons Hospital, Denver, where the president poses for pictures for the first time since his heart attack September 24th. Ike took his first steps unaided in his hospital room, shortly before emerging onto the sun deck to face the cameras. Ike's famous grin flashed out hearty as ever, pictorial evidence of his continuing recovery. Front page news for the millions whose prayers speeded the president's recovery. Those 5-star pajamas, by the way, are bright red, a gift of the press corps. Red pajamas and a red-letter day for the first patient.
As Eisenhower improved, the stars came out to support his message.
The President's Council on Youth Fitness was created by an executive order of President Eisenhower in 1956. This action alerted the country to the problem that we face in the area of physical fitness. The cause is practically self-evident. Modern conveniences, our technology, have eliminated the muscular effort in our daily lives.
Grandma had to use her biceps to get these jobs done. Today, the little woman flips a switch and the machine sweats it out. Yeah, we got it made. As if I had to tell you, your narrator was Mrs. Hope's little boy, Robert. And I'm glad to be in here pitching again for Uncle Sam.
The executive order specifies one objective: to be a catalytic agent in concentrating and creating public awareness. A President Citizens Advisory Committee on Fitness of American Youth was confirmed. Jack was ready to do his part.
Look at here. Do you ever stop to think about the American flag and what it stands for? Representing what? The greatest nation on the face of the earth. Do you ever stop to think of what into making this flag possible? The tremendous thought, the sacrifice, the lives lost, the toil, the fitness that went into it. When our forefathers were making this flag possible, they had this nationalistic feeling. They worked together as a team. No jealousy. Everybody was together to make America great.
First time I ever heard him lecture, he said, if this nation does not get in the shape mentally and physically, he said, we're going to go down the tubes like the Romans.
President-elect John F. Kennedy wrote the article, The Soft American, a month before he was inaugurated.
This should be a matter of concern to us all. A country is as strong, really, as its citizens. And I think that mental and physical health, mental and physical vigor, go hand in hand.
But now that we have too much of everything in this great land of ours, too many things are being done for us, we have become soft, mentally and physically. So this symbol here of the greatest nation in the world, first-class nation, first-rate nation, we are going to be losing our place very sudden-like as a first-class power if something isn't done radically to make the people more fit.
I mean, we have a President's Council on Physical Fitness and Sports today. I think in no small manner way because of concerns about national defense and concerns that American youth were not as fit as they needed to be for military service. Jack LaLanne was sort of establishing his career in the heat of the Cold War.
That's why it's all important for you and I to set examples, to show people what can be done about physical fitness, but to educate and to help everyone with whom you come in contact with about fitness. Tell them what it has done for you, how much better you feel mentally, so we can all get together collectively and make America the great, wonderful nation that our forefathers set out to make it.
Fitness is really, it's a cultural change of just gigantic proportions. At one point, Gallup talks about it as one of the top 2 or 3 changes in our culture.
And who is America? Right here, the 2 of us. That's what America is. If you get out of condition, I'm out of condition, then America is sick. Let's make it well.
Exercise and physical fitness, of course, is what LaLanne is best remembered for. However, it wasn't nearly the whole of his presentation. During his 23-minute broadcast, he included letters from the viewers, positive thought messages, and anecdotes, props, and recipes.
I'm going to show you how you can lift 1,000 pounds. Well, I see all the gangs here. Everybody's here today, but what's the matter? You look a little fuzzy. Things a little out of focus. Now, if I were to ask you right now, could you lift this? You'd say, Jack, don't be ridiculous. Even one of the strongest men in the world couldn't lift 1,000 pounds. See what I have here, students? I have in my hand a piece of fat. Now, this piece of fat here, it weighs a little over 5 pounds. By using my head instead of my muscles, I can lift this 1,000 pounds. All right? It says, Dear Mr. LaLanne, would you recommend jumping rope as a means of exercising to lose weight? I am 20 years old and have been told that it would be good for me. Mrs. HHB from Long Beach, California. Well, Mrs. HHB, jumping rope is a wonderful exercise. It is, along with proper nutrition. It will aid to get rid of some of those pounds, because any exercise is good, and jumping rope would be fun if you want to get out and do it in the backyard. Maybe some of your neighbors think you're, getting childish again, but it is a good exercise. I want to talk about gravity. What's supporting this fat right now? I'm supporting it, my energy, because if I let this fat go, what happens? Bang, it falls down to the ground, doesn't it? Sure it does. Do you ever think about this fat, that it has no ability to support itself? The only thing that supports you and your body, your tendons and your muscles. As I told you, and here is 1,000 pounds. We have these plates. They weigh 5 pounds apiece. All right, I take this plate, take another plate, see that? 5 pounds, 10 pounds. And if you have a lot of fat on your body, this fat has a tendency to fall down, to fight gravity. So if you have too much fat here, what happens? The fat stretches your muscles out of shape, it stretches the skin out of condition, and you have that hangy, saggy, flabby look. Even a child could lift that 5-pound plate, am I right? So by keeping this up for a little while, not too many times, I will have lifted 1,000 pounds, and you thought it was impossible. Come on, get out of your easy chair, your easy chair, your easy chair. Come on, get out of your easy chair. Gymnastic time again.
It's almost like you can get healthy and it'll help your marriage. And it's going to be very sex positive at a time when sex positive is not necessarily the image of television. And it's done in a very, folksy, non-pornographic kind of way. I mean, a lot of what passes as, video routines now border on the pornographic.
Are you ready? Yeah. Here is Kai with the warm-up. Feet apart, chest lifted, pulling the arms forward. And 4, stretching the back.
It's nice to see. It must be positive reinforcement for you. It must make you feel good.
Whereas LaLanne's was never that. And it was always, you can do this, your life can be better. And I think that's a really positive kind of thing. It's very different. And it speaks to these women as housewives, as women who are at home. And it's very much within the frame of a Leave It to Beaver culture.
In Jack LaLanne's heyday, if you were a regular planned exerciser, that was okay, but you were maybe a little fringy. You were kind of the Y rat, that never quite grew up.
When I was a kid, he was the local eccentric. He wasn't famous. And in those days, celebrity wasn't such a good thing. Middle class values had it that you didn't call a lot of attention to yourself. Entertainers were a little suspect.
One of the more noteworthy ways he made a name for himself and his cause was through physically demanding performances that drew the attention of the media.
He wanted to prove to people that you could get better.
His feats that he did, his 1,000 push-ups. I think he did 1,000 push-ups in 23 minutes on his 42nd birthday. The towing the 70 rowboats with 70 people a mile in Long Beach Harbor on his 70th birthday.
When he did the 40th swims, people thought they were over the hill. So many people. They get in their mind that they're 40 or 50 or 60. Oh my gosh! So they're over the hill.
He's not preaching all of the lift this weight and do this and do that. I'm not just going to tell you about your swimming stroke. I'm going to show you what I can do because I swim. He was an entertainer.
Now I want you to meet the girl who has lost all this weight, Martha. Hi, Martha. Now, see, here's a result of Martha losing too much weight.
When I was at home in college, he would get me up in the morning and tell me a joke. And if I groaned and went, "Oh, God, that was horrible," that's the one he'd use on television.
Speaking about juggling, did you hear about the businessman? He was such a good juggler, and he tried to juggle his books, and he ended up in jail. Okay.
Hey, you know something? You know the secret of the pyramids? You know how the pyramids were built? You know the secret? They had no coffee breaks, just exercise breaks. Okay.
At one point, he even took on some of Hollywood's comedy royalty.
You're Jack LaLanne?
I'm Jack LaLanne, Groucho.
Doesn't seem possible. Particularly since I've never met him. Where are you from, Jack?
I was born and raised in San Francisco.
Oh, were you there during the earthquake?
I'm not that old, Groucho.
They had one last week. Now, what did you do in the years before you were in the middle of San Francisco Bay?
Well, one of the things you probably heard of, I was the one that swam from Alcatraz prison to Fisherman's Wharf in San Francisco, handcuffed.
Well, isn't that the way everybody leaves Alcatraz, handcuffed? Well, what did you achieve by this? I mean, did you get any kind of an award, or?
Well, I'm the type of person I like to see people have hope. And the warden at Alcatraz, he conditions the prisoners, tell them that it's impossible to escape from there, so these fellows have no hope of ever being able to escape. So I swam from their handcuffs, so now they're happy. Maybe they can get a chance to escape. So they're happy and I'm happy.
The warden must be crazy about you.
He never shied away from telling people just how much he worked out, which was on average about 2 hours a day. Even as he got into his 90s, he was still working out 2 hours a day. And he said, you want to look like me, you want to be as amazingly fit as I do, that's what it's got to take. You see diets on TV commercials that say, eat whatever you want or eat as much as you want. I've heard that so many times. Jack said the opposite of that. He said, if it tastes good, spit it out.
In order to validate his position as more than another snake oil salesman, pitchman, or vain donkey, LaLanne used his knowledge of the body he gained in becoming a chiropractor.
I'll bet you that you're like I am. Most of the time, you just take your old body for granted. You just figure, well, you get up in the morning, and you have a little breakfast, and you eat food throughout the day, and you don't get enough exercise, and you just figure, well, your body should work good all the time. You just think it's your heritage to have a good body without doing anything about it.
Scientific evidence is, it's sometimes confusing to people. You've got the sort of the finding of the week, and, sometimes it seems inconsistent with the finding of last week, but over time, I think our society really has a lot of respect for scientifically established evidence, and doesn't surprise me that LaLanne would want to connect his recommendations and really his persona to that.
We have hidden, that's lying dormant in this body, the greatest powers imaginable. You talk about your hydrogen bombs and your atom bombs and all the rest of the inventions that man has invented. None of them can even scratch the surface so far as the workings of the body is concerned.
When he was in high school, he got a copy of Gray's Anatomy when he in ninth grade or in 10th grade, and he started reading Gray's Anatomy backwards and forwards and sideways again, but he was intrigued with the body because he saw the change in his body, what the body can do.
Here we are, students, all these bones here. Now, how do you think these bones are held in place? Do you see a lot of people walking the streets with bad posture, going on like this, half dead? Because they don't have good muscle tone to hold the skeleton in place the way it should be. And they don't eat properly, so their bones get brittle and all. So what holds these bones together? That's right, muscles. We have these practically 600 muscles in the body.
Jack LaLanne, long before there were the studies and the science and the people behind Jack LaLanne saying, hey, he's right. I mean, he was literally the only guy out there saying, no, folks, you need to keep working out. Women, you need to get stress on your body.
There are nerves for the eyes and the ears and for the shoulders and for the hands and for every part of the body. So when we do these exercises and we loosen the spine, we keep it flexible, we actually stimulate the nerve force that keeps you alive. Follow me?
My mom passed away from multiple myeloma. She had a horrible bone cancer. I got to watch my mom wither away. Lack of bone strength, osteoporosis, osteopenia are completely avoidable if women were to work out, were to put stress on the frame, were to put a load on that musculoskeletal system.
The more we exercise these muscles, the stronger and the more beautiful they become and the more enduring they are. Then you are really in shape. But if you don't work them, what happens? Like right here, the big hip muscles. This is, you girls have a lot of problem with this. You don't work these big hip muscles, what happens? They get weak, they actually die. So instead of holding the muscle up in the position where it should be, it starts to hang and sag, then with no circulation, fat accumulates on it, then you have this tremendous big hanging and sagging problem.
Our knowledge of what is an appropriate type and amount, dose of exercise has changed dramatically in the last 50 years.
Dr. Meyer Friedman, who brought the concept of the type A personality into the United States culture, was an active critic of exercise. In his 1974 best-selling book, he wrote that running was a form of mass suicide, adding that this miserable post-collegiate athletic travesty has already killed at least scores, possibly hundreds of Americans. Dr. Kenneth Cooper, author of his own 1968 bestseller, Aerobics, has heard his share of criticism.
See titles in medical newspaper articles that said the streets going to be full of dead joggers as more Americans follow Cooper. That's how the American profession, medical profession, thought about exercise.
Now look at this, students. Look at this body, the wonders of this body. Remember, the food that you put in your mouth goes into your stomach for digestion, goes through your intestines for assimilation.
Coronary heart disease patients, in the 50s, went to bed and stayed there. And we learned the hard way that, that prolonged exposure to bed rest was very deleterious to the body and just really delayed recovery. And so now, heart patients are up, within a day or two, and surgical, orthopedic surgery patients are up that day. And what it really says to me is our bodies are designed to be active.
It requires care, but it's still the most rugged and the strongest piece of equipment on the face of this earth. And if you take care of it, it'll last you for years and years and years and never give you any trouble.
And we do well with substantial doses of activity. Our bodies really were evolved to support a hunter-gatherer lifestyle.
Here is the only machine in the world that will repair itself, providing you give it the right tools. And the tools are, number one, proper nutrition and proper exercise. Then that machine will repair itself and give you the kind of service that you want. And remember that this body of ours is God's living temple. Let's don't defile it. Do you ever stop to think that you are not one person, that you are really two people? You have a dual personality. You know that? As we go through life, we all have good in us, we all have bad in us. Now, what you are, it's going to depend how much of the good comes out or how much of the bad comes out.
In a way, he was probably ahead of his time in making that linkage, because I do see religious organizations today as extremely important channels for health promotion.
It reminds me of a lot of you students out there, you have the most prized possession on this earth. You have these wonderful bodies that the good Lord has given you, but many of your students that are watching me right now, your bodies are not running. So what good are they? They're not doing you much good, are they?
Do you think man can make a body like this? Do you think man could make a heart that pumps like this? That's the way he was. He said, no. He said, you have a God-given body, and you need to take care of that God-given body.
Fitness was his religion. He could have gone the other way.
Norman Vincent Peale said, Jack, he heard a lecture one time, he said, Jack, you should have been a preacher.
I think he was. He was a health evangelist. And in many terms and ways, he was every bit that, yes. He used his knowledge. He used his purpose and passion that he had in order to articulate something he believed in deeply. Just like a pastor, a preacher, a rabbi, call them whatever you want, is doing as they're sharing their message about God. Absolutely.
In a way, I think we could look at Jack LaLanne as delivering a moral message on television. The body is a temple. This will not only improve your physical well-being, but your mental well-being. Some would say that each show he did something like a sermon about how to better oneself.
Jack's religious messages, while incorporating Judeo-Christian terminology like God, prayer, and good Lord, were devoid of fire and brimstone, nor did he promise overt miracles. Popular ministers of the 1950s using the medium of television included Billy Graham and Oral Roberts.
If you have failed to live as good as Christ, you have come short and are a sinner.
Both found the medium a powerful tool to expand their message outside of the four walls of their churches.
Now you've got polio from your waist down, and the right side is affected the most. Now, Jesus.
What the televangelists did that was so successful was that they blended the traditional preacher approach of sermon with the common entertainment elements that were so popular.
Jack was not an ordained preacher who was out there preaching about salvation through Jesus Christ, much like the other two were. But Jack was out there preaching about salvation and health.
This voice says, boy, what you need is a piece of candy. And you look around, and so you kind of go and you get your piece of candy and you chew it up. And in your heart, you shouldn't be having that candy because you have too many extra pounds on you now. And that goes on all through the day. You have a little sliver of cake here and a little bit of this over here. And then in the morning when our little get-together comes on, you say to yourself, oh, I can't exercise today. And that old devil or whoever it is that keeps prodding you, he keeps over in this there. He says, look, you can't exercise today. Remember, you have children, you got too much work to do, or you're too tired today. Forget it today. Because the old devil, he knows if he missed one day, then it's going to be easier to miss another day. And before you know it, you're out of the habit completely.
Honey, oh, he wants down. Honey, walk on off, son. Walk on. Oh, glory to God!
Billy Graham was sharing good news of faith through Jesus Christ. That's the way he looks at it, right? Praise God for that. Jack LaLanne was sharing salvation, faith, through living a healthier way.
Jack did not appear to use his position to threaten or frighten audiences with religion, but rather to offer strength and reassurance from a source perceived by many to be larger than himself. This type of presentation is familiar to many in sociological studies.
One thing that Weber wrote about was the Protestant work ethic, which really goes back to the biblical teaching that faith without works is dead. So Weber equated work for one's family as a moral enterprise.
Highly disciplined. Never mind what it says in the Bible. Paraphrase. Proverbs 13:18. Shame and poverty come those who are not disciplined. Now, I think Jack and I have the same concept. We owe something. This is a spiritual thing. And our body is a temple of the Lord's.
When we think about Jack LaLanne's appeal, we can hearken to Weber's idea about the work ethic and doing something for our bodies, does something for others.
As for Jack, the message was often laid in the familiar and friendly.
Hey, boys and girls, I know you all say your prayers at night. You know, well, Happy, he says his prayers too. You want to see Happy say his prayers? Come on, Happy, say your prayers. Come on, boys. Come on, say your prayers. Come on, say your prayers. Say your prayers good. Amen. Okay, bye. See, he's a good dog, isn't he?
Personal examples were important to Jack as well. He often told stories from his past, incorporating family members along the way.
You know, students, it really inspires me every time I'm with my mother. The attitude that she has. You know, she never looks backwards. She always looks forward. And you know, this wonderful body she has and this health and this enthusiasm, this is something that she earned herself, because in her middle years, she lost her health and all, and she regained it through what we are doing now. There's proper nutrition and proper exercise. And she's a very religious woman. But you know, she's not the top. She says, Jack, she says, most people don't know how to pray. They're always asking God for something. But when my mother prays, she thanks the good Lord for giving her the truth, the light, about knowing about proper nutrition, about the care of the body. That's what she prays for. She prays for truth. And don't you think that is the right way to pray? And his mother has always said, you know, the good Lord can go so far, but you have to do it yourself. If you want a miracle, if you have a dilapidated body, an old body, a body that's racked with aches and pains, and if you want a new body, you just don't say, dear God, please give me a new body, and then go ahead with your old eating habits and all. But you pray, dear God, give me the intestinal fortitude to do something about it, then you'll get your new body. But you have to do it.
Jack LaLanne passed away on January 23, 2011. He died of complications related to a pneumonia. One of Jack's most repeated quips was that he couldn't die, it would ruin his reputation. Based on the outpouring of support for him in the media upon his passing, that would hardly seem to be true.
Over the weekend, we lost an American icon, fitness guru Jack LaLanne. This man single-handedly invented the fitness industry in this country. He passed away at the age of 96. We wanted to do something for Jack, so right now we're going to honor Jack LaLanne's legacy with a 21 juicer salute.
There was one notable outlier, however, in this crowd. New York Times writer Frank Bruni penned a column with the title "The Ripped and the Righteous." In it, he criticized LaLanne for helping create a collective culture of guilt for those who don't subscribe to working out. More succinctly, Bruni wrote, "In the post-LaLanne landscape, it's not the eyes but the abdominals that are the windows to the soul."
I read that at the time, and I thought, he's just writing clever prose.
There is truth to what he has said. I think that a culture has been created in terms of those outsiders, people who are not fit.
Bruni cited author and professor Mark Grafe. Grafe is quoted in Bruni's article saying, "There seems to be a whole substitute morality, where your obligation is to go to the gym and not ask why. If you don't, you become a sort of villain of the culture."
It's like saying, why is it worth living if you can't eat Twinkies, if you can't indulge in everything you want to indulge in? It was annoying, but I don't think it's very consequential.
And I read that Frank Bruni article, and I thought to myself, are you kidding me? How unbelievably irresponsible. Here was a chance to champion a guy who literally lived every word that he said.
That Jack LaLanne took this to a much wider audience, and just to give a personal view here, I grew up in New York City. We're Irish Catholic, and no one was preaching on Sundays about gluttony and sloth. Those were kind of out of the lexicon of sins anyone was really concerned about.
How rare is that? How important is that a guy in the 50s was telling us that processed food is a disaster, that sugars and that flour, that anything white was a mess. I mean, he was saying it in the 50s. And here it is, 2012, and people are still kind of going, oh, really?
At the same time, I do recall very much that my family felt that Jack LaLanne was very narcissistic. He was too consumed by how his body appeared than what he did with his body, what his character was, and in effect, what good acts do you do with what you're given.
In his 2004 article, Against Exercise, Grafe rails against the culture of fitness, saying, "Men and women seem more ashamed of their actual bodies in the present environment of biological exposure than in a pre-gym past. An era of exercise has brought more obsession and self-hatred rather than less." Neither Grafe nor Bruni responded to multiple requests to be interviewed for this project.
The way that fitness is portrayed in the media, I find to be quite toxic.
Author Stephen Grisanti wrote the book Health and Fitness Industry Scams, Frauds, Fakes, and Personal Trainers Exposed in 2002. In it, he interviewed several trainers whose motivations for being in the industry were clear, if not somewhat disturbing. Do you love working as a personal trainer?
Nope, but it's good money and it beats working for someone else.
Do you prefer to train men or women?
Whoever has the cash. Money's money. Where else are you going to make $60 an hour?
$35 billion a year is spent on the fitness industry in America.
The fitness industry has been poisoned by greed.
I like that. Good. Okay, so that's one.
The fitness industry has failed spectacularly in helping people to understand what it is that they need to do.
We're into a dialogue about obesity that's really built around blame and shame. We individualize this condition so that we make the individual totally responsible for their situation.
I read that Frank Bruni article, and it hit what I run into every day in my gym and in my personal training business, which is people trying to pass off responsibility for their own health. You know, if a doctor says to you, do this, this, and this, well, then do this, this, and this.
If you take a look at obesity around the world, it's accelerating in rural India, rural China, and this is a result of some very profound changes in our occupational physical activity, physical exertion, in our food supply, and in the exposure that we have to this Western diet and Western style of living.
Jack was aware of some of the same problems, though far less pronounced at the time, and he addressed them in his show.
Here's what we've done, students. You know the secret is getting more raw vegetables in your diet. So we have the raw celery, raw carrots, and raw tomatoes. Next thing is to get more protein in the diet, less calories. So we have the low-fat cottage cheese, and we have salmon. You know, fish is one of the greatest foods on this earth. And you can season this a little bit to your taste with garlic powder or onion powder. And like I say, it's so easy to fix. It's so simple. Try it for 5 days and see if you don't feel and look better. Because here's the live, vital foods. These are the foods that nature intended you to have, students. It's the foods that are going to build up this bloodstream of yours so this blood can go to every part of your body and help you to be younger and help you to feel like a different person. This is nature's way. This is the inexpensive way, the modern, the fast way. So will you please try it and see if it doesn't work?
In a 1995 interview in Outdoor Magazine, an 81-year-old LaLanne expressed his frustration with what the fitness industry had become. "Have you seen some of the crap they're selling as exercise equipment now?" LaLanne said. "How about that Suzanne Summers? She should have been thrown in jail for selling the piece of crap Thigh Master. It just develops a little muscle on the inner thigh. What good is that? And have you seen Tony Little, the guy who screams on TV? He's like an imbecile."
Butt, hips, and calves.
Oh, look at your calves. They look great.
That's because it's, freestyle.
In talking about the state of gyms and the prolific policy of signing up many more members than could possibly use the facility, he said, "It's like the movies. The artistry is gone from health clubs because of money."
The snake oil salesman is alive and well, and he's still in the health and fitness business. People don't want to accept reality because reality's hard. It's tough to consider that if you're going to get in shape and get a high-performance body, that it's going to take a significant amount of effort, and it's not going to come in a pill.
While Grisanti is highly critical of the industry as a whole, he holds LaLanne in a high regard. There are many talented individuals dedicated to physical fitness who are outstanding examples of health, but their greed alters their thinking. There are the exceptions. Mr. Jack LaLanne is a health and fitness pioneer who at 87 years old looks better than the vast majority of the American population. My hat goes off to this man. It is worth noting that Frank Bruni recently announced he has developed gout as a result of his dietary indulgences tied to his work as a food critic. This is on the heels of celebrity chef Paula Deen's announcement that she has diabetes.
Talk about a hero. Every single day, without fail. And he tried to help as many people as he could. And what a patriot. He actually believed that if we were all more fit, we would be a better country. He believed it to his soul.
All he cared about was getting people to work out. And if what he left was encouraging people to do that, that would be fine. He never did it for his own gratification or, oh my gosh, I want to be remembered this way. He would only hope that his work would encourage people to get better.
We've lived our whole lives being educated about the value of exercise and fitness. We don't have any excuse. A generation before us, you could say, well, people didn't really know that much about it, and the educational systems weren't that advanced, and well, we don't have that excuse. Okay, we grew up listening to Jack LaLanne tell us, that this was important and good for us, and so it is going to be interesting to see how this plays out for my generation.
And though he lived an extremely prolific 96 years, he wasn't done living when he died.
He always said, I'm still getting started. I said, well, my God, when are you going to start? He had more to do, He believed like this: anything in life is possible and you can make it happen.
In 1951, Jack LaLanne took to the airwaves to combat the United States citizens' declining fitness, something President Eisenhower himself said was a national crisis. Jack used his medical knowledge, extensive experience in the field, and faith in God to present his messages on the medium of television as had never been done before. His legacy, like any celebrity, is mixed based on who you're asking. What cannot be debated is that he had a significant impact upon the culture of television, the growth of the fitness industry, and how those two would meet. Jack's personality, just like his physique, was extremely strong. It seems he usually got the last word. Ever the performer, Jack ended every show with the same last words expressed in a song. So it goes.
Keep up the good work. And you know what my watch tells me? It's time to leave you. Let's say goodbye. These precious moments just seem to fly. Now here's my wish for you. May the good Lord bless and keep you too. See you tomorrow. God bless you. Bye, Mother. Have fun. Bye-bye.